perspective, or get out of the perspective and get into all four, where you have the 3 orthographic and the perspective. And then in your top view, you can go ahead and zoom into that by hitting the space bar, clicking in that window and hitting the space bar, and then go to View, Image Plane, Import Image.
It says open
From there, I want you to go ahead and click knife, fork, and spoon and open it. That should put it in your front view, or top view, sorry. Go to Curves and Surfaces, and then click on this last option for the Bezier tool. What I want you to do is click and trace around the handle. Now, one thing I've noticed is how many people are doing long Bezier handles like this. Even though you can notice I get a chunk in my line here, for some of you, if you're doing it here, you may not be getting this chunk. But a Bezier handle this long will make it break. It will make it do the bevel plus improperly, and you'll get these spikes that come out. So people that have been getting spikes, that's what happens. So make sure, I usually go to the middle of a curve and then the end of a curve. I also try to keep my lines fairly even on both sides. And then on this bottom, you can do 1 point there, just keep this at about 180. From there, that gives you a really good kind of surface to go ahead and adjust this. Now, I can't get that curve perfectly that way, so I have to add a little point here. Let me zoom in. Add a little point there. And at the very end, I'm just going to do another click. That should give me the spoon handle. If I need to move any points, I can right click and hold on this and go to vertex control. That will also help if I need to move any of these extra little objects. So if I notice that this is kind of crossing the line, I can move it. From there, I want to right click, make sure that I am in object mode, and select the line. It will be green. From there, go ahead and go to Curves, Open, Close. That should close my line. If I wanted that to be a little straighter, I could go back to Control Vertex and move it if I'm looking to kind of create this symmetrical shape. From there, once I've selected this object, I'm in object mode, I can go to Surfaces, Bevel Plus. If my shape is closed correctly, it will fill in. If I get any spikes, that means that either it's not drawn correctly or there's a Bezier handle that's too large. To adjust this Bevel Plus, I go to my Attribute Editor, click on the Bevel Plus tab, and then I can adjust the width here. I probably need to look in some of the other views to get the height correct. So I'll just make sure I can see all of the views. And it's saying that what I tried to do was make it a little too small. That's why I have this yellow line. From there, once I have this handle correct, I'm going to not make a sphere here. This would be a NURB sphere, a surface sphere. We're going to go back to polygons, make a sphere here, draw it out. Mine always end up too small, so I'm going to this channel box and I'll go ahead and do a like 25, 25. It's not an exact science. If you want to change it a little, you can. And from there, I'll select half of the faces, the same I did with the cup, same way I did with the cup, and delete them. From there, I'll go ahead and put it back in object mode and do my very basic scaling. So I'll squish it in, and I'll squish it up until it's about the thickness of a spoon. Now remember, you're the artist, you're the designer. There's not an exact answer for that. There's not an exact reference in that. And now I can right-click, go to Vertex, and select just the top ones. What this is going to do is allow me to get that kind of spoon curve that's uneven. So I select those, and then under the Move tool, double-click, go to Soft Select, and click there. Remember, yellow moves the most, red moves the least, so if I need to adjust this fall off until it gets to be about red here, I can. And then I'm just going to stretch it up. And if I want this to look a little smaller at the end, I can stretch it in. If I wanted, I could also select these and stretch them out until I get that shape. From there, I click back in object mode. I generally turn my soft select off so that it can't cause any other issues. Ooh. Actually, I'll scale this up just a tiny bit more. There we go.
What mode were you on beforehand?
I went to, in this one, when I was using soft select, it's just vertex mode.
Okay.
And then I'm going to right click, go to faces, select all of the faces, and do an extrude. Mine worked pretty well around 0.1, 0.2. But depending on your shape, you might get different results. Also, you probably want to put a smooth modifier on it. Hit 3 on your keyboard. Now we've gotten some questions. What do I do next to combine these? I would just select the spoon, shift click the handle, and then from there, go ahead and do a mesh combine. It also decided that since I combined these and this had a smooth on it, that it would smooth out the other objects. From here, if you have any other questions about the fork or knife, I'm going to show that very quickly, and then I'll walk around again. So to get this fork handle, or the fork top, you probably want to zoom in. And hands can go down. I'll be walking around after I finish this. I click here, do the outline, and even if you're stuck on one object, maybe try the easier one next. So I'll do my fork.
How do you unparent the child? Because I got some weird.
I'll have to show you in a minute. So from there, just trace your fork handle. The only Bezier you can really do excessively large is usually this bottom one, but we're going to see if that causes an issue. I want to test kind of to see what the limits are. And unlike the spoon, I'm not just going to trace the handle, I'm going to trace this whole object. Now the thing about the fork is that these teeth have a very specific pattern to them. And if you zoom out enough when you're trying to make them, it ends up making this kind of like chunky, horrible design up here. So make sure that when you're doing these teeth, you are zoomed in. Once you finish your fork, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to go to Curve, Open, Close. Do this same Bevel Plus, Surfaces Bevel Plus. And this one you definitely need to go through to this Bevel Plus and shrink those amounts if you want this thing to look anything like a fork. Now this one, you'll definitely want to go in this view. Add a little bit of smoothness. Go ahead and do count. But this count, if you notice that my number, anyone extrude their fork and they have all these weird little juts in it? This like odd spiky behavior going on? That's because under method count, under method count, this is how many samples it takes. If you go down, or how many points, if you want it to be smoother, increase the count amount. And you notice the more I do that, the more I start to get some curves to it. From there, in this front view, or side view, I'm going to go ahead and do another soft select. I'll go vertex, select kind of the points I want it to bend at. I need to bump that up a little, probably around 2. And then what I can do is select my vertices, really just adjust this fall off. And you can kind of, and you can start to add those curves that'll make this look more like a fork.